Alexander Kane was an enigma, a man of many layers and hidden depths. To the world, he was a mild-mannered accountant, a man who seemed to live a life of routine and predictability. He blended into the background, a man of numbers and routine, someone who could easily be overlooked in the hustle and bustle of the corporate world. No one would suspect the fire that burned within him, a fire that was fueled by a passion for the digital realm. The fire of a master manipulator, a digital phantom who could navigate the darkest corners of the internet with ease. By day, he crunched numbers in a faceless corporation, his life seemingly mundane and unremarkable. By night, he navigated the labyrinthine world of cybersecurity, his fingers dancing across the keyboard, breaching firewalls and exploiting vulnerabilities with a skill that was unmatched. He studied heist strategies, memorized code, and understood the intricate workings of the financial world, always staying one step ahead of those who sought to catch him. Alexander was building towards something, a plan so audacious it could shake the very foundations of the digital economy, a plan that required precision and patience. He craved the thrill of the impossible, the adrenaline rush of outsmarting a system designed to be impenetrable, the satisfaction of knowing he had outwitted the best. He wasn't motivated by greed, not in the traditional sense. For Alexander, it was about the challenge, the intellectual pursuit, the art of the heist. This was about proving something to himself and to the world, about showing that even the most secure systems had their weaknesses. He wanted to demonstrate the fragility of their digital fortresses, to expose the hubris of those who believed themselves untouchable, to show that no system was truly secure. In his mind, he was an artist, and the digital world was his canvas. Each breach, each exploit was a stroke of his brush, a testament to his skill and creativity. Alexander Kane lived a double life, one of routine and one of excitement, a life that balanced on the edge of legality and brilliance. He was a man who could never be fully understood, a man who thrived in the shadows. His journey was far from over, and the world had yet to see the full extent of his capabilities. Alexander Kane was a name that would be remembered not for the life he lived by day, but for the legend he was creating by night. For months, Alexander meticulously crafted his masterpiece. He chose his target carefully, a powerful multinational bank known for its arrogance and lax security protocols. He studied their systems, mapped their vulnerabilities, and identified the weak link, a seemingly insignificant employee with access to critical systems. He crafted a Trojan horse, a harmless-looking email containing a malicious payload. He waited patiently, like a spider waiting for its prey to stumble into its web. The day the email landed in the employee's inbox, Alexander held his breath. He watched as the unsuspecting employee clicked on the attachment, unleashing the digital serpent into the bank's network. The virus spread silently like an invisible ink stain, infiltrating servers, bypassing firewalls, and granting Alexander access to the bank's inner sanctum. He had bypassed the impenetrable, circumvented the insurmountable. He was inside. Emily, Alexander's wife, was the epitome of warmth and sunshine. Her presence could light up any room, and her laughter was infectious. She had a way of making everyone around her feel special and loved. She saw the good in everyone, including her quiet, unassuming husband. Alexander was a man of few words, but Emily believed in the depth of his character. She admired his dedication and the way he always seemed to be working towards something important. She knew he had his secrets, his late nights at the computer, his hushed phone calls. These were things she chose to overlook, trusting that he had his reasons. She believed that every relationship had its mysteries, and she was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. She trusted him, or at least she wanted to. Trust was the foundation of their marriage, and she clung to it, even when doubts began to creep in. She told herself that love meant believing in each other, even when things seemed unclear. Lately, though, a knot of anxiety had taken root in her stomach. The late nights were becoming more frequent, his demeanor more distant. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that there was a growing chasm between them. The late nights were becoming more frequent, his demeanor more distant. Alexander seemed preoccupied, lost in his own world. He was there, but not really present, and Emily felt the weight of his absence.
The late nights were becoming more frequent, his demeanor more distant. It was as if he was slipping away from her one late night at a time.
One evening, while Alexander was showering, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. The sound was jarring in the quiet room, and Emily's curiosity got the better of her. Emily, her heart pounding in her chest, couldn't resist the urge to glance at the screen. She knew it was a breach of trust, but the nagging doubts in her mind pushed her to take a peek. An anonymous message flashed. The transfer was successful. Don't forget our deal. The words were like a punch to the gut, confirming her worst fears. Her blood ran cold. This was no late-night work project. This was something sinister, something that didn't align with the man she thought she knew. Emily's mind raced with questions. What deal? What transfer? She felt a sense of betrayal, a crack in the facade of their perfect life. The weight of the secret was unbearable. Emily felt like she was carrying a bomb, the timer ticking away. Each second that passed felt like an eternity, the pressure mounting with every heartbeat. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The man sleeping next to her, the man she loved, was a ghost, a phantom wearing her husband's face. Every night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions and doubts. She confronted him. At first he denied it, brushing it off as a misunderstanding, but Emily knew better. She could see the guilt in his eyes, the hesitation in his voice.
What is this, Alexander? Tell me the truth. Her voice was firm, but inside she was trembling, fearing the worst.
It's nothing, Emily, just a misunderstanding. He tried to sound convincing, but his words lacked the conviction she needed to hear.
But Emily pressed, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and betrayal. She couldn't let it go. She needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be.
No, Alexander, I need to know. I deserve to know. Her determination was unwavering, her eyes locked onto his, searching for any sign of honesty.
Finally, cornered and defeated, Alexander confessed. He told her everything, the meticulous planning, the thrill of the heist, the ease with which he'd manipulated the system. His words spilled out in a torrent, each revelation more shocking than the last. He tried to justify it, claiming he hadn't hurt anyone, that the money was insignificant to a bank that size. He spoke of his motivations, the desperation that had driven him to such lengths.
I haven't hurt anyone, Emily. The money is nothing to them. His voice was pleading, desperate for her to understand, to forgive.
But his words rang hollow, drowned out by the deafening roar of her shattered trust. Emily's world had been turned upside down, and she was left to pick up the pieces of a life she no longer recognized. The weight of the secret had finally been lifted, but the burden of betrayal remained heavier than ever. The next few days were a blur.
I oscillated between anger and despair. How could I have been so blind?
The signs were all there, the late nights, the secrecy, the detachment.
I had chosen to ignore them, clinging to the image of the man I thought he was.
Alexander, consumed by guilt and the fear of losing Emily, became a shadow of his former self.
Our carefully constructed life was crumbling around us, the foundation of trust eroded beyond repair.
Emily knew she couldn't live with the secret, couldn't be complicit in his crime.
But exposing him meant losing him, meant turning the man I loved into a criminal in the eyes of the law.
The decision, when it came, was agonizing.
I loved Alexander, but I couldn't be his accomplice.
She contacted the authorities anonymously, her voice shaking as she revealed the truth about the man she'd vowed to love and cherish.
The arrest was swift and brutal.
Alexander, his face pale and drawn, looked at Emily with a mixture of betrayal and understanding. He knew deep down that this was inevitable, the price of his deception. As they led him away, a single tear rolled down his cheek. It was the tear of a man who had lost everything, his freedom, his wife, and his carefully constructed facade. The trial was a media frenzy. The unassuming accountant revealed to be a master cybercriminal, his digital heist a stark reminder of the vulnerability of our increasingly digital world.
Stripped of my computers and code, I was revealed to be just a man, flawed and ultimately human.
He pleaded guilty, accepting responsibility for his actions.
My heart was heavy with a mixture of grief and relief, watching from the gallery. The man in the courtroom, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, seemed a million miles away from the man I had loved. And yet a part of me still clung to the memory of him, the man who had swept me off my feet, the man who had made me believe in fairy tales.
In the aftermath of the trial, Emily struggled to rebuild her life. The betrayal cut deep, leaving scars that ran deeper than any physical wound.
I poured my pain into my writing, my story becoming a cautionary tale about love, betrayal, and the seductive power of secrets.
Her book, a raw and honest account of their life together, became a bestseller, a stark reminder that even the most ordinary lives can hold extraordinary darkness.
Incarcerated and stripped of my digital prowess, I was left to contemplate the consequences of my actions. I spent my days reading, writing, and reflecting on the choices that had led me to this point. I knew I had hurt Emily, had betrayed her trust in the most profound way. I had no one to blame but myself.
Alexander's story is a cautionary tale for the digital age. It serves as a reminder that even the most secure systems are vulnerable to human ingenuity, and that even the most brilliant minds can be corrupted by their own hubris. It highlights the moral complexities of a world increasingly reliant on technology, where the lines between right and wrong can become blurred in the digital ether. But most importantly, it reminds us that even in the face of extraordinary betrayal, there is always hope for redemption for both the betrayed and the betrayer.